Follow along in this tutorial and learn how to create an expandable HTML5 banner using Adobe Animate. In this lesson, I'll show you how to create a banner ad that expands to a full width of 1200 by 400, but collapses back to a size of 300 by 250. Topics covered in this tutorial include importing an Illustrator design, adding keyframe animations, using a shape tween for an expandable animation, and adding button actions. I'll also go over how to test the work in a web browser. So let's jump right into this lesson and start creating. All right, let's get started by creating a new document. So I'm going to click on Create New. That'll bring up the new document window here. Now we want to create a custom canvas size. The width will be 1200 and the height will be 400. The units automatically will be set to pixels. The frame rate, if it's at the default 24 frames per second, go ahead and change it to 30. And then ensure that the platform type is also set to HTML5 canvas. Once you have these settings in place, go ahead and click Create. All right, now that I have the canvas set up, I'm going to click on the timeline panel here. And this is where we'll add the keyframes for the animation and other layers for the expandable banner. But first, I want to show you the Illustrator file that we'll be importing into the canvas here. I'm just going to open that up. So here is the design that we'll import into Animate. But I wanted to note that you could see on the right-hand side, I have everything on separate layers and renamed. That's important for when you're actually importing it into Animate. These layers will carry over with this document, and it's really important to go ahead and rename those so it's easier to animate later on. But here's the document, which will be available to you in the lesson files. You can find the link for that in the description below and download the files to follow along. So I'm just going to minimize this and go back to Animate, and we'll import the Illustrator file next. To do that, let's just go up to File, Import to Stage, then locate the Illustrator file that is provided to you. It's called banner_add.ai. Go ahead and click that and choose Open. Now, I like to collapse all the layers here so it looks good. It's a cleaner look, and you can see to make sure that all the layers are carried over correctly, and they are here. You just want to make sure that this box is checked where it says Select All Layers. Once you have that in place, go ahead and click Import, and you can see that it all carries over and the layout carries over with it as well. We'll start by animating the main image first, but before we go any further, I want to make this entire sequence, the entire animation for this expandable banner, 4 seconds long. So I'm going to click on the first empty frame on the 4-second mark, and then hold your Shift key and click the last one, and you can see they're all highlighted here. And then just press F5 on your keyboard, and that just inserts frames. You can also go to this icon here and choose frame. That's the same thing, but F5 is the shortcut to just insert empty frames. So you can see this timeline now is 4 seconds, but nothing has been added. So we'll start by animating the main image, the football player, first. So this is for a fictional sports ticket exchange company called Front Row, and it's to promote some UFL tickets that's also made up that are going on sale. So let's click on the main image layer first, go up to Modify, make sure that you have it clicked, go to Modify and Convert to Symbol, and we'll call this Football Player. Now you want to make sure that the type is set to movie clip in this case, and then just click OK. Now we converted that to a symbol, which means we can add an animation to it and other elements such as a color effect, such as an alpha. So I'm going to click on it here, and with your playhead, just move the playhead to the 15 frame mark. I'm just going to zoom in on the timeline a bit. And then at the 15 frame mark, press F6 on your keyboard to add a keyframe. Okay, so we have 2 keyframes here, but there's no animation. All right. On this keyframe, by the way, if you want to add a keyframe the long form way, you could do it the same way I showed you. Click on this icon here and choose Insert Keyframe. Okay. So on that second keyframe, click on the football player and just drag him to the right. hold your shift key to keep him straight, and then position him in the middle of this, or the center of that circle that is on that background. Perfect. So now if I move the playhead, there's point A, there's point B, but there's not really a nice transition to it. So to do that, click anywhere in between, right click and choose Classic Tween. Now if you followed my Animate tutorials in the past, I've shown you how to use Classic Tween. You can see now you have that smooth transition from left to right there. And so we've just created our first animation for our expandable banner. Next will be the logo. So you can see the logo layers down here. And let's go ahead now and add a keyframe to the 15 frame mark on the logo layer. And just do that by pressing F6 there. Move the playhead to the 25 frame mark. Put your cursor or click there in the 25 frame mark and press F6 again. Now in this second version here, by the way, we have to convert this into a symbol. So let me just do Command Z until that is gone. Let's convert this to a symbol as well. So I can right click it as well and then convert to symbol. And let's just call this logo, which is fine, and click OK. Now I can go to that 15 frame mark and press F6, move the playhead to the 25 frame mark, click there, F6. On the 25 frame mark keyframe, click on the logo and use your transform tool, your free transform tool, and let's move that to the right. Hold shift again just to keep it straight, and then position it somewhere in the center of don't miss the action, just so it's centered there. Is fine, that looks good. But let's also increase this in size just a bit here. I'm just gonna maybe just bring that out just a bit with my free transform tool. I'm holding shift and I just scaled it out a little bit here, okay? So again, if I go back to my playhead and go to point A and point B, you could see there that there's two keyframe animations, but there's no transition there yet. Go ahead and click anywhere in between, right click, create Classic Tween. Now you can see now it will grow into place and land where we have it set there, okay? Now the only problem here is we have to remove the keyframes prior to, in the logo layer, we have to remove the keyframes prior to where we set that animation. So I'm just gonna click that first one, hold my shift key and click that last one and just hit delete or backspace. And you can see now that will start right there after the football player comes in. So if I press return, that's what we have so far, okay? So we can now move on to our next animation. That will be the don't miss the action text here. So you can see it's off to the left after I move the football player. So let's go ahead now and let's just hide the main image for now, just so we can see our don't miss the action. You just turn that eyeball off. Okay, so click on don't miss the action, right click and convert to symbol. And let's call this top title text and click OK. And while we're here, let's do the same for the action. Right click, convert to symbol, and this will be bottom title text. And of course you can rename these symbols whatever you want. So now that we've created both of those into symbols, we can now go ahead and animate them. So let's start with don't miss. You can see I'm on the don't miss layer. I'm going to move the playhead to the 1 second mark here, and I'm going to click on the 1 second mark and press F6. Now you can see I'm still on the don't miss layer, and I'm going to move my playhead to the 70 frame mark here. Go ahead and place it there, and then add another keyframe on the don't miss layer right there. Let's go back to the first keyframe here. Go ahead and click that. Now for this, we'll need the free transform tool again. Let's zoom out a bit. So hold your command key and just scroll out with your mouse. And what I want to do here actually is I want to scale this so large that it's out of the canvas completely. I'm going to hold my shift and I'm just going to scale it out. And let's go zoom out a little bit more and scale it out. Now it doesn't really matter where or how much. Something like that is fine. Maybe a little bit more. Let's do something like that. And you can see in my color effects here, if you go to your properties panel, click on the object tab, and then down below, there's something called color effects. In that drop down, choose alpha, And you can see that that has a 0 opacity or alpha. Ensure that it's set to 0 so you can't see it. Again, if I go to point A and point B, that is the transition right now. But let's go ahead and right click anywhere in between the 2 points there, the keyframes. Right click, and let's create a classic tween. Now, if I do this, watch this, hit enter, you get that transition there. Now, I do want to add a special ease in out to this. So I'm going to click in there, and I want to go to right here where it says tweening, click classic ease, and then choose ease in out. And then you have a few presets here in terms of how this will ease in and out. One is quad, cubic, quart. I want to choose quint. So click it, and you can see that is the bend, or the, I guess, the strength of this ease in out, okay? So double click it and watch how it appears now as opposed to the first time. You can see it comes in, it snaps in a little bit nicer, right? Again, we have to go back and delete the previous frames. So first, click on that first keyframe, hold your shift key, click the last frame, and just hit delete or backspace. So let's see what we have so far. We have our, well, let's turn the football player on. We have our football player, the logo, and don't miss, okay? Now, I wanna make sure that I have everything clipped outside of the frame. Let me zoom back in to show you what I mean here. So everything is inside the canvas, but I don't wanna see that text, don't miss text come in until it's on the page. So I wanna make sure that this icon is selected, clip content outside the stage. Go ahead and click that. And let's have a look now, 2 and 3. Beautiful. So I'm going to place the cursor at the 2-second frame mark, and we're going to focus on the bottom text here, the action. And at the 2-second frame mark on the action layer, go ahead and insert a keyframe there, and go ahead and drag the playhead to the 100 frame mark. Click on that frame and insert another keyframe. While we're here, let's go ahead and delete all the frames previous to this. So I'm going to click that first one, hold my shift key, click the last, and just hit delete. I'm going to click on this first keyframe here. And remember, we want to scale this one up. So make sure that you're on your free transform tool here. And while holding your shift key, just drag it out. And again, you're going to have to zoom out here, drag it out, out. Maybe something like that is fine. And again, because we created this or converted it into a symbol, that gives us the ability now to add an alpha to this. So again, in the properties panel, under the object tab, click the color effects, drop down and choose alpha. And it already defaults to 0, which is fine. But if it's not, just move that slider so it's at 0 so you don't see it. Perfect. So now we have that transition here. You can see that one goes in. And then there's the second one there. Again, we don't have an ease yet, so right click inside any of those 2 points, those 2 frames, and let's add a classic tween. And you can see now, if I play the 2 together, there goes don't miss, and then the action comes in next. But again, we have to add an ease in out to that second text. So go ahead and click classic ease, choose ease in out, and then double click quint. So let's see how everything looks so far. Hit enter on your keyboard, and that will play out all the animation that we have so far. I'm going to move my way back. And the last one we have to do is on the last 2, if I zoom back in here, is the UFL tickets, which is called promo, as well as buy now, the buy now button. So I'm going to click on this first one here, right click, convert to symbol, and let's just call this promo text is fine. And now buy now, because this is a button, we'll actually convert it into a button symbol. So right click that, convert to symbol, and let's call this buy now. And the type here will be button. That allows us to add button actions to this. So let's go ahead and click OK. I'm going to move the playhead to the 3-second frame mark. Click there and insert a keyframe, and do the same thing for the promo text at the 3-second frame mark. Insert a keyframe. and then move the playhead to the 110 frame mark and do the same thing. Add a keyframe there for both layers. Those last two objects will come in with a fade in effect. So I'm going to move my playhead back to the 3-second frame mark, and let's start with the promo text first. And because we've already converted this to a symbol, I can go to the Object tab here, go to the Color Effects, and choose Alpha. I'm going to click the Buy Now button layer, this keyframe. Go to the Object tab, and under the Color Effects, also choose Alpha. Now let's create a classic tween for both of those layers. Right-click, Classic Tween, right-click, Classic Tween, and let's delete all the layers previous to that. So click that first keyframe and then click this frame here to select both of those layers and just hit delete. Now let's take a look at how everything looks now. If I press return on my keyboard, you can see the football player, then the text, and the last two elements are the promo text and button. So now that we've set all that up, we can move on and start adding our mask for the expandable animation, the buttons, and then add the actions at the very end. For this next part, we'll need to create a new layer. So I'm going to click on the main image layer and then click this icon, new layer, to create a new layer. I'm going to double click and I'm going to rename this mask. I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. I'm going to roughly draw out a shape, and then I'm going to go to my selection tool and click that. And I want to make sure that the width of this is set to 300 and the height is 250. Now I want this to be at the very top left part of the canvas. So this portion here will be the 300 by 250 portion that will be the collapsed version of our expandable banner. Now with the shape still selected, I'm going to right click and create a shape tween here. I'm going to move the playhead to the 15 frame mark, and I'm going to create a new keyframe there. I'm going to click on that shape with the transform tool, move this little anchor to the upper right hand corner, and drag out the shape so it fills the entire canvas. I'm going to move the playhead to the 110 frame mark. Let me just decrease the size of that. And here I'm going to add another keyframe. And I'm going to move the playhead to the 4-second frame mark, which is the very end, and add another keyframe. But instead of adding a keyframe, let's just copy that very first keyframe, right click and copy frames. Click that last frame there and just paste the frame there. So let me show you now. We have our expandable banner animation. If you could see, I'll play that through and then it expands back. Okay, so that's the first part of adding the expandable or the expand animation. Now, if I go back here to the very first frame, what I want to do now is right click the mask layer and choose mask. Now, the only layer that's masked here is that main image. You can see it's kind of shifted to the right as opposed to the other layers here. So what we have to do is click that Buy Now button layer, hold your shift key and click the background layer to select all of them, and then just drag until you see that little, see how it highlights there, that line? We want to drag that right under main image. Now to see the mask animation in work, just go ahead and click this lock icon right there, and you can see now that masks out the entire portion of our design. And if I just hit the play button here, you could see that now all the animation will play and then it'll expand back. I'm going to click on mask and I want to create yet another layer. So go ahead and click new layer, and this one will become our buttons layer. Now, before I go any further, I just want to click on the canvas and I want to make sure that the stage fill color is set to none because I want this to be gray in the back. Good. Now I can move my playhead right back to the beginning of the animation and click the first frame there. And what I want to do actually is click the rectangle tool again, and I want to create a shape that is the same size, the same dimensions as our mask there. And this will essentially become our button, our hover state. So let's go ahead and click the selection tool. Let's click it, right click, and convert to symbol. And I want to call this open button, like so. and make sure that the type is set to button. Go ahead and click OK. Now I can double click that, and what that does is it drives into another timeline here specifically for this button symbol. So what I want to do is take this keyframe and drag it to hit. So hit is this entire space. Wherever we drag or hover over this area, that will expand the actual banner as well. So once you've done that, just click this arrow to go back to scene 1. Now if I play that, let's just play it again. You can see it works, but you can see that the button is still visible there. So I want to make sure that it is invisible when it's expanded. So after that first keyframe, click on frame 2 there, and let's click this icon and choose blank keyframe. Okay, so that ensures that that button is invisible when it's expanded. Great, now let's move our playhead all the way to frame 110. Make sure that you're still working on that buttons layer. Let's click on that frame there and insert another keyframe, so F6. Now for this, let's grab the type tool or the text tool, and let's just click there and type in close. Okay, this will become a close button. Now that's way too big, so let's decrease the size. Right now it's 97.2. Let's make it something like, I don't know, maybe 38. Let's try 36. And let's decrease the tracking there. Something like that is fine. And we do want it to be white. I'm going to grab my selection tool and position it somewhere right here in the right hand corner. Now we want this to become a button too. This will become the close button. So right click it and choose convert to symbol. And let's call this close button. And again, ensure that the type is set to button. Go ahead and click OK. And here, once again, double click. And in the hit state, instead of dragging that over, click the hit state, press F6 to create another keyframe there. And what we can do now is just go back to our main scene. So again, to ensure that this is invisible until the animation ends, you can see where I've positioned that. Let's go ahead and click on the next frame over after that keyframe, and you want to insert a blank keyframe. Okay, so now this should all work. If I hit return, there it expands. Here comes our animation, and then the close button, and then it'll collapse back to its original state. Before we add the actions, we just have to add instance names to both of these buttons. So I'm going to go back to the first frame, click on that button, and in the Object tab in the Properties panel, you can see here there's a field for an instance name, and let's call this one open_btn. Let's move our playhead to that second button, this close button, click that, and let's call this close_btn. And you'll see why renaming those instances is very important when you're adding the actions. So I'm going to go back to the very first frame here, and we'll create a new layer. This layer will be called actions. And you want to make sure that you're clicked on the first frame on the actions layer. Now for this, we want a stop action because we don't want the animation to play until the user hovers over that button. So for this, let's go up to Window and choose Actions. And we'll be using the Add Using Wizard button here. So go ahead and click that. So the action will be Stop. The object on which to apply the action for this will be this timeline. And click Next. And the trigger event is with this frame. Now you can see that it creates some code here. Go ahead and click Finish and Add. Click underneath that code that's been created. And now we can add our play action. So Add Using Wizard again. Scroll to the bottom and choose Play. On this timeline, click Next. And we want on mouse over, and you can see there, open_btn is the instance name that we just created for that button. Go ahead and click that and choose Finish and Add. Now if I close that for a sec, you can see that the animation still plays, but you know that that has been created. The action is when you see this little A symbol above the frame on the actions layer. Great, let's move our playhead to the 110 frame mark, and let's go back, let's create a keyframe there. Let's open our actions window again and add using wizard. And for this, we want to add yet another stop action on this timeline, and then click next. With this frame, finish and add. Click below, add using wizard, and this is where we'll add the play action on this timeline. Click next, and for this, we want on mouse click because we want to click this close button to close and collapse the banner ad. So go ahead and choose on mouse click, and there's the close underscore BTN instance name on that button. So go ahead and click that and choose finish and add. So we're done with this actions window here, so you can go ahead and close that. It's time to test out the banner in a web browser. To do that, go up to Control and choose Test. That'll launch the banner in a web browser, which I'll just drag over here. Let me expand that. So there is the collapsed version. You can see it's not doing anything. We have full control. So if I hover over it, there it'll expand. The animation will play out, and then you saw that the close button appears. And I can click to close, hover over, all the animation plays out, and then there's close, and I can close the banner. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to create an expandable HTML5 banner ad using Adobe Animate. If you found this video helpful, leave a like or comment below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notified when new lessons are released. If you'd like to learn more about Adobe Animate, go ahead and check out this playlist right up here. And until next time, take care and keep creating.